Ancient technologies. So there's always a debate about the hunter-gatherers and how there's a progression from being a hunter-gatherer to being a group that can do agriculture and then to being a group that can create a society, megalithic structures and stuff like that. And a lot of the main points is always the idea that you need a lot of food, a lot of people, a lot of time to build megalithic structures, which to a certain degree that is true, but not 100% true. Because a lot of stuff can be built, even stuff that looks like it would take a lot of time, effort, manpower to create. Actually, it can be created by just one person or just a couple people. I'm fully capable of building things by myself. Would it take time? Yes, of course. Since I'm doing it by myself, of course, it'll take time because I can only do but so much in a certain period of time. How much food would I need? It depends, right? I could go with just one meal a day, right? So if it'll take me like 30 days to build something, then I just need 30 days worth of food, right? Or 30 meals. And then I can achieve something within 30 days, right? But it's something I see a lot of people always use, the idea that if the hunter-gatherers, since they're apparently busy hunting and gathering, they don't have time to do much else. It's like, that's incorrect. That implies that when they hunt and gather, they only get a meal's worth of material, a day's worth of food, right? It's like resources, right? I doubt it, because we don't even do that, right? Logically, you try to gather as much resources as you can within a day. So in one day, you should be able to get a month or even 2 months worth of, food, right? Think about it. If I need 30 fishes in one day, let's say I could catch 2 fish an hour. That means, and I need 30 fishes, then that means I would need to, in 10 hours I can catch 20. So in 15 hours, if I'm right, yeah, in 15 hours I can catch 30. So in 15 hours, which is half a day,
7th floor.
I can catch
Going up.
I can catch enough fish to last me a month. And that's just for me. Now, if everybody else did the same thing at the same time, where we all catch 30 fishes each, we will have enough food for everybody, right? Enough fish to go for a whole month. And all it took was 15 hours of time because everybody's working at the same time. Which means the remainder of the day we can do whatever we want. The remainder of the month we can do other things because the fish part was already taken care of in 15 minutes worth of time. So it just sounds like a lot of people, not surprising that in modern day time, people are shitty with time management, that they assume ancient humans were just as wasteful with time. But they're not. They're more time efficient, because their survival depends on timing, right? They gotta gather all their, hunting. They have to do all their hunting and gathering before it's even nighttime. That's where a lot of the predators come out, right? A lot of the things are dangerous to them. Plus, it's nighttime, so it'll be hard for them to see things. So it'll be hard for them to see danger. Plus, they gotta sleep. So it makes sense that they would do a lot of the work during the daytime and do, like hunting and gathering, for example, and do many other things at night.
6th floor.
Under
Going up.
like fire, right? They'll set up fire and stuff like that, and then they'll build stuff. So megalithic structures more likely would be built at night, and people will be taking shifts. Because shit, we even do that in the military, where we take turns working, right? We rotate. So it wouldn't be the same group of people working 24/7, right? You have the day shift working, you have the night shift working, right? While the day shift sleeps, right? They obviously they rotate. This is how you would get a lot of work done in a short period of time. The main goal, the main thing is everybody has to understand their job, their roles, and everybody has to play a part. The other thing is, unlike modern day times where largely it's mostly guys, adult males, and now adult females, right, working together. In the past, everybody worked. Children had things to do, women had things to do, and the men had things to do. Right? The old men had certain things to do, which usually was solving problems. And the younger guys were the ones who physically did a lot of the heavy lifting because they were young and strong. The ladies did a lot of the remedial stuff, a lot of the logistics, a lot of the lightweight stuff. Even something as simple as walking around and making sure everybody, got their little 5-minute break, right? Got their drinks, got their food that were brought to them by the ladies. Right? They had their jobs, guys had theirs. Everybody played their part. Everybody used what they're best at. Obviously, guys did most of the hunting. Some of the ladies probably did the fishing, but they mostly didn't need to because the guys were more than capable of hunting and fishing, right? So the ladies handled most of the gathering of wood, gathering of fruits and berries and stuff like that, vegetables and whatnot. And it was just team effort, And that's the thing. But the way people think nowadays is people think more complicated. So they think it's like, oh no, it would be hard for a group of people who only did a certain thing. There's no time for them to do anything more than that. It's like, no, that's incorrect. So I disagree with the whole time thing. Like, hunter-gatherers didn't have time to make megalithic structures. That's incorrect. What I do agree with, which most people don't say, but some people do, which is they didn't have the idea. They didn't have the knowledge. There was no real need to make a megalithic structure. Because you gotta understand, there has to be a purpose for it. It can't just be because they were bored, had nothing better to do, or because they created agriculture or some shit like that. Which is why they decided to start building things out of big, large stones, which don't make sense. It'd be easier to make things out of smaller stones. But at the same time, it'd be easier to make things out of wood. Plus, it makes things a little bit more portable. Because if you're all nomads, right? If y'all travel, like whenever it's winter, you want to leave the location you're at and go somewhere else. Now, there's a possibility. The idea of megalithic structures, could have been a form of creating shelter that would last out the, bad weathers, and they would leave to warmer climates. During winter season, they go somewhere that's hotter, right? So they follow the sun. So they go wherever the sun goes. So they always have sunlight, right? They always have warmth because they don't like the cold. So they leave their megalithic structures behind, right, during the winters, but they always come back. And because it's made of stone, it will last longer. If it was made of like wood, mud, stuff like that, bad weather would ruin those things. So it would make sense to logically at some point start building things out of stone. But did the stone have to be big and massive? No.
Fourth floor.
They could have been small stone. A whole bunch of small stones. But what if there was a scenario where every time they left they came back other groups stole their stones, right? Their small stones and built their own stuff, and or just tore up their their home essentially. It's like, or maybe for some reason animals, or even at some point maybe earthquakes and stuff like that. It's like, our structures are not lasting as long as they could, especially if it's a 3 month season, right? 3 months of winter, that means that location is vacant for 3 months, and anything can happen, right? Other people can occupy it, especially if they're using it for shelter to protect themselves from the cold weather, among many other things. So at some point, it's like, yeah, we need to make it harder for people to destroy our structures or to steal our stone to build structures. So they decide to build it with heavier rocks. That would be like a logical progression, that they need to build it of heavier material, so that way it's harder to take down their structures, right? And then if they created stuff like doors, right, to make it hard for anyone to enter their megalithic structure, their home, while they're gone for 3 months, that makes sense, right? We lock our doors, we put security systems in our homes when we go on vacation. So, we even trust some of our neighbors to keep an eye on our house while we're gone. Security, right? So it makes sense that they would increase their security by using bigger rocks. Like, we need to be able to justify why they're doing this. Can't just be like, well, they suddenly started farming and now they made megalithic structures. That's a stupid mindset. Like, you got to be able to justify why big rocks, why big, giant, heavy, ridiculous size rocks. So there had to be a reason for it. So it's just a matter of figuring out what was the reason for the rocks, not just like
Going up.
could they have done it, right? Could they move it? Were they smart enough to move it? No, it's why did they use big rocks when it would be smarter, simpler to use small rocks. Same thing with the polygonal wall design. A lot of people see it like a jigsaw puzzle, and they over exaggerate and be like, oh, this is very advanced, this is very 500 IQ level type of construction, method of building. It's like, no, this is actually more of a 5-year-old way of building things. Get a whole bunch of random objects and stack it on top of each other that just so happen to fit well together. Get a whole bunch of rocks with a lot of flat surfaces and stack them on top of each other, like Legos, like a 5-year-old can do. So this whole idea of like, oh no, there had to be, super smart or some advanced technology to build these walls. Like, no, they didn't. The only thing I could agree with advanced technology-wise would be the idea of the tools used to cut and lift, if they had to lift it, right? Cut and lift. So cutting and moving the stones, especially big giant stone blocks, right? That's the technological advancement. That's the thing, the mystery to be solved. And it's not that complicated. I got some solutions for that. What I would do without, big giant robots or a crane or something like that, or bulldozers. How would I move a whole bunch of big, heavy blocks? How would I cut them with very, very basic methods, right? The most powerful tool a human has, especially me, is my brain. Our brain is the most advanced piece of technology we have, and most people overlook that. They like to think that technology or something advanced has to be something man-made, so to speak, something physical. But if you think about it, interesting enough, if you think about it, you are man-made, or man and woman-made, right? So you're a man-made structure, a machine, right? Biology. You're organic, yes, but still machine, right? The fact that we do use animals like elephants and stuff like that, and that's another thing. They probably had access to animals. They probably tamed elephants, gorillas, you don't know, right? Things that are big and strong, hippos, You don't know what they tamed to help them, do things. They could have tamed big, strong creatures. What if there was like Neanderthals, right? Big, strong humans that weren't that bright, but they were strong. So then the smaller, less strong, smart humans teamed up. Same better relationship, right? Teamed up with the bigger, stronger Neanderthals, and it's like, hey, you're big and strong. Can you lift this heavy thing here and there? Right? Brains and muscles combined. Teamwork, and then they were able to create stuff. And then you hear stuff about giants. What if the giants were Neanderthal, right? Literal, big, 7 foot, 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot giant humans. That is not impossible. Dinosaurs are giant, right? They're really, really big and tall. So if they can exist at that level in height, there's no way we couldn't be big. Among other things, you could have done some inbreeding stuff to further take advantage of gigantism, because that's the thing. So you could do some gigantism breeding and deliberately create big, tall, strong human beings. We even have methods for making really strong, muscular, cows and stuff like that, right? To have more muscle density. So, more meat, right? More meat for more beef, for more hamburgers. So, humans are very smart. So our most powerful tool and piece of technology or advanced technology is our brain. And then we do have opposable thumbs, right? We have joints and stuff. So we have the ability to function and move. And then teamwork, right? Strength in numbers. So not everyone is going to be equally as smart, right? Unless there's a central educational system within each group where knowledge is shared. Now, I know for a fact people in the past definitely shared information more often than not. It was definitely necessary for survival to share information, to share knowledge. But over the years, the idea of being greedy, trying to monetize information and knowledge for one's own personal benefit, started creating problems. So in modern day times, we're more selfish with information and knowledge because of the fact that we feel we can use it, right? Knowledge is power, and I get it. It is. But that's unfortunate that people take advantage of that. So they try to keep knowledge and information to themselves so they can use it against others, charge others for it. It's like, hey, you want to know what I know? Pay me for it, right? So the incentive, or the financial incentive, is what leads to a lot of the issues we have in modern day times. But in the past, it was very beneficial for the group, right, to share information. Somebody figured out where's the best location to hunt. The group shared that information, and the group benefited from that one person finding that one piece of information. Same thing as if somebody figured out that the best way to build something, like a tall structure out of stone, for example, was big stones on the bottom, small stones at the top, right? That would benefit the group. So the main thing is you just need one person to have the idea, one person to do it, right? And I always think in my mind, like the way people figured out the whole, stacking stone thing and how it's better to put the big stones at the bottom and the small stones at the top. It was most likely children who was bored, played with rocks, start stacking them, right? Because to them, it gives them something to do. While the adults are busy hunting and gathering, the children are playing, exploring, being little scientists, as they say, right? And they're doing all these little experiments through playing in the sand, playing in the water, right? Playing in the vegetation, playing with rocks and stacking them, throwing them, hitting You ever see kids when they're playing, you give them something, they just start immediately banging it on every surface. They immediately put it in their mouths, right? They are experimenting, they're testing their environments. They're little scientists. So, no surprise if somebody's smart enough to pay attention to children, or the children remember the stuff they did when they were young. I remember playing with rocks. I remember hitting this rock onto this rock and it broke. I remember that as a kid. Now they're an adult. Now they use that information. Now they're like, okay, I'm gonna break rocks with another rock. I don't know which rocks to use, right? Maybe they were banging a couple rocks and created a spark. Boom, that kid inadvertently discovered, how to start fire with rocks, right? Rubbing two sticks together and then boom, a fire happened. Like, oh shit, this is amazing. This is interesting. And the list goes on and on of things kids could have done that would eventually, or humans in general, would have done that would have led to understanding how certain things work, right? In order to be a good hunter, you have to understand how animals move, how animals think, how animals behave. So they had to learn and figure out, that one, animals are pretty smart, so it's not going to be easy to just walk up to them and just kill them and that's it. They're going to know you're dangerous. They're going to try to avoid you. Camouflage, and the list goes on. Like so many things they'll do for their own survival. So then it's a game of intellect, you versus the animal, and the animal is trying to survive. So it's going to come up with clever ways to survive. You have to come up with clever ways to catch it, right? To hunt it, right? It's easy to go grab some fruits and vegetables because they're not going anywhere. They have no choice but to let you pick them and eat them. But animals, they want to survive. So they will fight. So then you have to learn how to. So that's where weapons come in, right? Making spears and using rocks and hitting things with rocks. Especially a kid probably hit another kid with a rock. It's like, oh shit, that hurts a lot. I mean, God forbid a kid hit a kid with a rock and killed them. It's like, oh shit. But maybe that's how they figured out that you can use rocks to kill animals, to kill living things. And then they used it for hunting, but eventually they might have used it on each other, right? That's unfortunate. That's a outcome. It's like, hey, your girlfriend's hot. Well, you can't have her. Oh, hit you with a rock. Now you're dead. Now she's my girlfriend. Like, whoa, that's effed up. But hey, that could happen. You don't know. You weren't there. But you can assume that stuff like that could have happened, right? It's the whole idea that if it could happen, it would happen. So, right, the Argan rays are the easiest. The more likely solution is the simplest. So at some point, somebody was going to figure something out. It's more likely going to be someone who is bored. Now, the thing is, something we definitely see in modern day times, and we've seen it in history, a lot of the best discoveries, well, obviously was done by accident, but was also done by lazy people. People who didn't want to do things the hard way, like a whole bunch of dudes lifting heavy rocks to build something. Somebody at some point was like, why don't we use leverage, right? It would have been like that. Obviously, it would have came from certain activities. There's a possibility they might have used to play with sticks and start, poking holes and stuff. And they found that they can use a stick to lift, right, lever and lift over a rock. And maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe there was some bugs or a snake or something hidden under a rock that they needed to get to or whatever, right? So they could have figured out leverage that way. A lot of our knowledge comes from necessity. It comes from there was a problem and we needed a solution, so we took the time to try to solve the solution. Once we solved the problem with that one solution, we found other applications for that solution. It's like, this could be used to lift this heavy rock just with a stick. Maybe we can lift heavier rocks with bigger sticks. So then they start getting bigger tree logs, tree branches, and start trying that. Then they realize, if we use more than one tree branch, right, more than one log, right, we can lift heavier stuff, or we can lift it easier. It's easier if we use more wood, and they started working from there. And like I said, it's a progression. So, but it would take at least one or two people to have had that idea for that to happen. But then we get to the idea of like, okay, when it comes to very sophisticated methods, we start looking at stone, just like, okay, this is beyond stacking, because a 5-year-old can stack stone. But to cut stone, like specific shapes and sizes, right? It's like, okay, that requires more thinking. That requires creativity, imagination, right? This is why most people who like to argue, oh, it's not that big of a deal, cutting rocks and lifting rocks. It's pretty easy. Easy for those who know, but 90% of you people out there on the internet don't know how to cut rock. Y'all can go look up YouTube videos to learn, yeah, from somebody who knows, but you don't know inherently. You're not naturally gifted with that knowledge. You're not, just because you have the human brain doesn't mean you know everything that humans ever thought of. You don't have all the knowledge of every human to ever existed. Can you try to learn everything? Yes, but you don't inherently have the knowledge. So the idea of thinking like, I understand that some people would think, oh, ancient humans wouldn't be that smart. It's like, yeah, they wouldn't be that smart inherently, but they could figure it out over time. But it takes time, which they definitely had plenty of. They had plenty of time, plenty of generations. And they shared, that was the most important thing. They shared their knowledge, they shared the information. So they help make future humans smarter in faster time because they shared. They weren't selfish. They didn't think that they were more important than anyone else around them. They believe everyone else is important. So anything that benefits the group was important. It was a duty to share knowledge, to help kids back in the day, in ancient times, would be told by their parents to go, get some water or a tree or some wood or something, and the kids would do it. They wouldn't argue, they wouldn't complain, they wouldn't be like, I'd rather stack rocks, I'd rather play with my friends. No, they would go and get the water and the wood. And they probably invite their friends to go with them and make it like a little fun activity. So they get to hang out with their friends and do what their parents told them to do, right? Help their family. And that's the thing, kids felt obligated to help those who took care of them. They don't believe in biting the hand that feeds them. They don't think to talk disrespectful to their parents, to talk down to their parents, to tell their parents, oh, this is oppression, oh, I feel traumatized, oh, I feel this, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. None of that nonsense you have now. That ignorance exists now, but it wasn't that common in the past. Since your survival depended on your family, your friends, the group, you had no choice. So it was very important for everybody to work together as a team so everybody can benefit, right? So, like I said, it's always annoying to see people, try to categorize certain groups into a certain box. We do that in modern day times, and that's always incorrect, right? Yes, there is generalization is valid, right? The majority of guys act a certain way, the majority of females act a certain type of way. Yeah, that is true. But there are exceptions to the rule, and that's the important part, the exception. So you can say hunter-gatherers, all they did was hunt and gather, so they wouldn't be really interested in science and math and building megalithic structures. Like, I could agree with that. They wouldn't be typically interested in that. Just hunting and gathering would be all they need. They'll be okay with, that simple process. But, like I said, the exception, right? There's always an exception. Somebody probably hates hunting and gathering. It's like, there has to be an easier way for us to enjoy. Like, they love to eat, but they don't want to go hunt to eat. They don't want to go gather to eat. They love to eat. So, like I said, there's always a lazy person that always comes up with a way to be lazy, right? So a way to make things easier. So at some point that person would have figured out, how to create traps. It's like, why us chase animals and get tired and try to throw a spear and kill them when we could just put a trap, right? Make a trap, put food there. When they come to get the food, boom, they trip a rope, right? And the rope lets the spear swing, or a rock tied to rope swing and kill the animal, and boom, there you go. Somebody would have been smart enough to figure that out. And by creating traps to make hunting easier, that means less time you spend hunting, which means you have more free time. You know, it's just that simplicity. Like, they would have, and with that extra time, then they can work on solving, you know, coming up with other ideas. Like, what else could we do? Could we improve our mud huts and our, you know, our wooden, you know, our tree branch houses, right? Little huts and stuff, or caves. Why live in a damp cave when we can create something better and prettier, right? Like, we can create our own man-made cave, as it were, right? Why just use naturally formed caves when we can make our own caves, aka buildings, aka homes? So eventually start figuring out that idea. But it would take somebody to figure that out, right? Especially if you're traveling, like I mentioned the whole thing earlier of traveling during the seasons, like when it's winter and this, that, third, you rather be somewhere where it's warm than somewhere cold. So the structures, right? So the fact that they want to be in a warmer climate means at some point they will have to, you know, because they want to be in a better environment, they would have to move and leave and try to find a new cave to dwell in, or create new mud huts and stuff like that whenever you're traveling would be time consuming, problematic, blah blah blah. Why not make it easier and make, you know, stone structures, right? They can last a long time, and then you travel, right? You know, go on vacation, as they say, right? Travel to warmer climates, you know, live it up, hunt, gather, all that good stuff, and then circle around, come back to a previous location. So the importance of keeping track of the sun, right? Very important, because the sun is good, and you want to stay in warm climates. So you're going to move, but at some point you're going to end up going back to certain locations, because eventually those locations are going to be warm again. So the idea is to avoid the cold, the winter. Just like you want shelter when it's nighttime, right? To avoid nighttime, right? To avoid danger. So, and then just the fact that during winter it's probably hard to fish, hard to gather. So you rather move to warmer climates where it's easier to fish, easier to gather, right? So hunter-gatherers are not going to stay in the same spot if the weather changes a lot. They're going to want to move. It would make sense to be in a location where the weather doesn't change too much, like tropical locations. But for those situations where they don't have the option of being somewhere that's always warm, they might end up in a situation where it's the weather changes, where it rains, where it gets, you know, where it snows, right? So those types of factors. And then of course, if they start doing farming, then of course they need better farming conditions, right? They don't want they do want rain, but they don't want winter, right? Because that would ruin the crops. They want sun and rain. So stuff like that will be taken into account. And they might want to collect the rain. So then they might create structures that can collect rain. Not only collect it, but also filter it. So that way they can drink it. So, you know, make sure the water is drinkable, useful. Obviously, they would have figured stuff out like boiling water, how to make fire, and the list goes on and on. They would have figured out certain things eventually, which, you know, will allow them to advance. But the thing is, you would need people who have interest in making things easier. Like somebody would have an idea of wanting to make hunting easier, gathering easier, shelter easier, right? Staying warm easier, staying cool easier, with shade and stuff like that. Then, clothing will be a factor, and the list will go on and on. Eventually, little by little, everybody will have an idea that contributes to the group, and the group benefits from it. Then the next step would be to record the information, right? To share the information. And like I said, the whole traveling part, that's one way you would be able to take the knowledge to different locations and share. As well as once you build something, I'll use the term monkey see, monkey do. At some point, some group of humans will come by a certain location, see, megalithic structure, or just see basic stone stacking structures, right? And be like, oh, this is interesting. Then they'll memorize that, right? They'll be like, oh, we could do that. And they'll start stacking rocks. And then that's how inadvertently knowledge is transferred, just by seeing, right? Monkey see, monkey do, right? Just like looking at nature, seeing how a bird, like an eagle or something, or falcon, fish using their claws, humans would have been like, oh, we can do that too. Okay, let's figure out how to make claws, essentially, right? They can grab some sticks, sharpen them, right, by rubbing them against rocks, and make spears. And eventually they might figure out the bow and arrow concept, but at first it will be a pointy stick, and go from there, right? That's the thing, they would mimic nature. Nature already has a lot of mechanisms. Nature already figured out, right, how to do certain things. So the humans would figure these things out eventually. They will pay attention. A lot of our advancements, a lot of our technology, in modern day times, is inspired by nature. The airplane, inspired by birds. It'd be surprising if people try to say it's not, because clearly birds are the most common things that fly. Not tigers, not elephants, right? Birds. So of course, birds at some point was going to give people the idea of flight. So there's no way ancient humans didn't have flight as an idea. The boats with sails. Notice most sails tend to be triangular in a certain way. What we surprised is inspired by sharks and other fishes. It's like, these things live in water. They have these things, which we call fins, and that might have inspired them to create boats. Notice the boats, their shapes tends to kind of look similar to half of a fish. Like, there's a lot of similarities to nature in a lot of mankind's, technological achievements, like boats and airplanes. Right? Even stuff like scissors and claws, right? Scissors would be inspired by crabs, right? As an example, like crab claws. The list goes on. There's a lot that already exists in nature that past humans would have learned from. They would have figured out things. They would have probably saw woodpeckers, pecking wood, which would have gave them the idea that they can take something pointy, like a rock, like a pointy rock, and start stabbing it into wood, and bang. The invention of wood carving could literally just came from a human watching a woodpecker peck wood, right? And the list goes on. I'm not going to bore you with giving you the whole history of how humans develop technology just based off of nature and whatnot. Just pointing out the fact that at some point they got the information. The main thing is they got the information from somewhere. They either figured it out the hard way, or they literally did a monkey see, monkey do thing and copied someone else or something else, right? Aliens, right? Or just animals, and nature, and copied it and did things, based off of what they saw, right? Monkey see, monkey do.
Lower level. Going up.
And that'd be the end of the video.